Written in the stars. Chapter 1. Gwen Taylor was used to holding men's hearts in the palm of her hand. As a cardiac surgeon, she dealt with life and death every day. The thrill of being able to literally save someone's life never got old, and days like today were especially rewarding. "You were amazing in there." Her colleague, Dr. Sindhu, was almost gushing. "I don't think I've ever seen such delicate work on a bypass before. That kid was extremely lucky she got you in the OR today." That kid's name is Janelle. She's a precocious 6-year-old who was born with that valve defect, and this is her 5th surgery. She and her family are unbelievable. They deserve a happy ending. I'm hoping this does it for them. What Gwen didn't say was that she was worried about the fact that Janelle might need to have another surgery to repair the valve again as she grew. Sometimes it was a fight between celebrating the immediate win and being concerned with everything else that needed to happen to keep the ending happy. Sindhu seemed to sense her concern. As Gwen removed her gown, gloves, and face shield, he walked over and put his hand on her shoulder. "We can only work on the problem that's in front of us. Worrying about what's down the road, maybe years away, doesn't help fix it. It only takes away from the joy of today. You did a kick-ass job in there, and it's time you celebrated that success." Gwen was very grateful for Dr. Sindhu. He was much older than her, and had a significant amount of experience, both in medicine and in life. She always laughed a little when she saw him coming down the hallway in UC Health, the University of Colorado Hospital in Denver. He never failed to have his glasses perched on top of his mostly bald head. He was a slight man who moved quickly, always running to help with whatever disaster presented itself next. She was grateful to have him as a colleague and a mentor. He tempered her enthusiasm and passion with a big dose of "been there, done that" reality. "It was a pretty clean surgery, wasn't it?" She agreed with a big grin. "One of the best I've seen yet. You're very talented. If I was a young up-and-coming surgeon, I'd be jealous. Hell, I'm an old, happy where I am surgeon and I'm still jealous. I really do love it. I hope that I'm as good at it as you are. You know, when I get old, and all." Gwen's eyebrows rose in a teasing arc. "Well, I guess you'll find out in about 30 years, Sindhu snickered. "I can't believe I'm so close to retirement already, just a few more years to go. It all goes so fast." His eyes stared far beyond Gwen. She could see him looking back to his youth, his beginning. "Oh, you know, you'll be doing this forever. I don't ever see you leaving. People like us don't retire, we just keep on going." Gwen genuinely hoped that was true. Retirement wasn't a word she'd allow into her vocabulary. "Sooner or later we all slow down, kiddo. No shame in that. But what would be a shame is to miss the beautiful night we have. It's supposed to be a gorgeous evening. Tell me you're doing something fun." "Actually, I'm heading out of town tomorrow. This week, all sorts of planetary alignments are taking place, and there's a good chance we may be able to see the northern lights right here in Colorado. I'm so excited, that's been on my bucket list for ages, and now I may be able to see them right here in my own backyard." Her eyes sparkled with anticipation. "I thought you had to go to Alaska to see the northern lights. If you can see them in Colorado, I might just have to drag Annie out onto the roof tonight." Sindhu was clearly considering it. "Well, I don't think you'll be able to see them in Denver. There's too much ambient light here," Gwen laughed. "The 3 things you need for the northern lights to happen is clear, cold, and dark. I don't think our fair city qualifies as dark." "So exactly where are you hoping they'll magically appear?" I can't imagine any of the cities around Denver qualify as dark either. He seemed perplexed. I'm heading out to Palmer Ridge, a little town way up in the mountains. It's about 90 minutes from here. It's a tiny little place. I guarantee there are no lights there after 9 p.m. They only have one hotel, and it has a total of 15 rooms. We are not talking big city in any way, shape, or form here. I'm not even sure it's classified as a town. What's smaller than a town? Cindy shrugged. I don't know, but I guess you'll find out tomorrow. Midge's diner was never really crowded, but today was an exceptionally slow one. The town of Palmer Ridge only had 300 full-time residents. They got more folks in the ski season, but that didn't usually pick up until after Thanksgiving. Midge strolled over to her only customer and put a large spinach salad in front of him. Milo looked up from his book to thank her, and then went back to reading. Since she had no one else to tend to, Midge could afford to spend some time with one of her favorite customers. She leaned over the counter. So, what thriller are you reading today, Milo? He politely put down his book and looked up at her. I'm going over planetary cycles to get a good idea of where the aurora borealis is most likely to appear this weekend. Aurora what? Midge raised her eyebrows. Aurora borealis. The northern lights. Milo wasn't really sure how else to explain them. He felt like he knew them inside and out. That was definitely a benefit of being an astrophysicist. He could think of a million ways to explain them to Midge, most of which would lose her interest in about 1 minute, and have her eyes glaze over in 3. It never failed to amaze Milo how other people couldn't love the stars as much as he did, but he had always been something of a geek as a child. Even when he grew out of his awkward stage and girls started talking to him, it was short-lived. All he had to do was talk about his passion and most of them scurried away. Oh well. Thankfully, Midge understood the northern lights answer and nodded. I can't believe we get to see them all the way down here in Colorado. It's been a while since I last saw them. She turned around and poured herself a cup of coffee as Milo picked up his fork to start on his salad. You know, you're pretty much the only one who orders spinach salad. I buy 1 bag of spinach leaves every week, and they're usually all yours. Well, if it's too much trouble, I can start ordering something else. His eyebrows went up. He had no idea he was the only spinach salad fan in Palmer Ridge. It's no trouble at all. I love it that I know exactly what you're going to order before you even sit down at the counter. Predictability was definitely Milo's calling card, once you got to know him. At first glance, he was a seriously hot 30-something with short chestnut hair, a hard jawline, and blazing light brown eyes. His muscular, 6'3" form made people think he was a weightlifter when they met him, and then he opened his mouth. Suddenly they realized that the sexy, seriously built hunk in front of them was a world-class scientist, holding several master's degrees and a PhD. Half of the words that came out of his mouth were unintelligible to normal human beings. But he was passionate, kind, and genuinely caring. That went a long way with the folks in Palmer Ridge. Well, I guess I do my best, Milo smirked. That's all I can ask. Midge smiled as she turned toward the opening door. Gwen was experiencing some serious culture shock. Just 2 hours ago, she had left Denver, fighting the people on the traffic on a bustling Friday morning. As she pulled into Palmer Ridge, she was shocked to see that their main street was actually called Main Street. She genuinely thought that only happened in movies. She was also dismayed to find out that she didn't get the greatest phone service up here on the mountain. Gwen cursed the fact that her GPS was useless in trying to find her hotel. Then she turned on to Main Street and found pretty much everything that Palmer Ridge had to offer. She let out the breath that she didn't know she'd been holding. Okay, this wasn't so bad. She parked her red Prius and got out, surveying the street in front of her. There was a bar, a tiny bank, the police station, a yarn and bead shop, a coffee shop, a bakery, and even a good-sized diner. Cute and unassuming, she already liked this place. A man in denim overalls sitting on a chair in front of the coffee shop lifted his hand in greeting to her. Hello. Hello. She waved back enthusiastically. No one said hello to strangers in the city. She wasn't sure what the etiquette was here, but she was pretty sure she was already enjoying it immensely. Gwen pushed open the door to the diner. It was 11:30 in the morning, and she expected it to be bustling. Instead, there was one man sitting at the counter, and a waitress chatting with him. She almost felt like she'd entered the Twilight Zone. She took a seat one stool down from the only customer in the place and smiled at the waitress. Hello, how are you today? She was pleased that she remembered how to make polite small talk. It wasn't a skill she used frequently. Hi dear, welcome to Palmer Ridge. I'm Midge. Midge was a smiling woman with strawberry blonde hair that had just a touch of gray showing through. She wore jeans and a pink t-shirt under a clean white apron. This Midge? Gwen teasingly asked as she gestured to the menu, which was emblazoned with the words, Midge's Diner, in a swirly logo. The one and only. What brings you into my diner and our fair town? Gwen smiled, feeling her warmth and friendliness. I'm actually in Palmer Ridge to see the Aurora Borealis this weekend. I'm here in your lovely diner because I'm way too early to check into my hotel room, so I figured I'd have some lunch. Well, imagine that. Milo, this lovely lady is here to see the Northern Lights. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. Gwen Taylor. No sense in pulling out the Dr. Gwen Taylor card here, she was pretty sure that wouldn't impress anyone. Gwen, this is Milo Grey. We were just talking about his plans for seeing the Northern Lights this weekend. Milo, it looks like you're going to have company. Milo swiveled his stool slightly to look at the newcomer. His gaze fell on her soft brown hair, tied up into a ponytail. Her blue eyes were bright, and her cheeks were slightly flushed from the cold air outside. She wore a thin gold chain that had a pendant attached. It was a heart, not a flowery Valentine's heart, but an anatomically correct model of a human heart. Nice to meet a fellow Northern Lights enthusiast. She was smiling, holding her hand out to him. But Milo sat quietly, gazing at her. For a moment she wondered if he was still breathing. Hello, he stammered back. He shook her hand firmly and started to turn back to his salad. So, what can I get for you? Midge asked with an amused smile. Milo Grey never acted this flustered. Quiet, socially awkward, and sometimes disinterested, but never flustered. I'll have scrambled egg whites with a side of fruit and coffee, please. I might have some spinach around. I could do a spinach egg white omelette, if you'd like. Midge stared pointedly at Milo, who kept his eyes on his salad. Yeah, that'd be great, thanks. Gwen chirped brightly. She turned her attention back to Milo. She had certainly not expected to walk into a diner in Palmer Ridge and find such an amazingly handsome and seriously ripped man. The muscles in his arms swelled against the sleeves of his soft sweatshirt. Yes, this was a nice surprise, indeed. So, any recommendations for the best viewing location? She was trying to be light and airy, but only succeeding in staring at his hard jawline. Get it together, Gwen. She was here for one purpose, the Northern Lights. No sense in getting sidetracked. I believe the perfect location to be 39.28 degrees north, 106.06 west. Lighting is minimized and fields are open enough to allow adjustment for optimum viewing. Gwen was struck by how much his speech patterns resembled that of a robot. She found herself wondering if he was always like this, or if perhaps he felt the same tingle of electricity between them that she did. He turned back to his salad. Well, don't talk her ear off, Dr. Grey. Midge slid a coffee mug across the counter to Gwen. Cream and sugar. No, black is fine, thanks. Gwen turned her attention back to her reclusive countermate. For those of us that don't have experience in topographical geography, and who also don't have any damned cell service to be able to look up latitude/longitude map coordinates, how would I find this optimal spot? He looked at her and caught her eye, never breaking eye contact as he gave her directions. It's the Scotsman Loop trailhead. Park in the far lot, and from there it's only about 100 yards through the trees into the clearing. Make sure to get there before dark to settle in. If you decide to view from there, my tent will be right in the middle of the first clearing. You'll see my truck. I'll make sure to bring an extra thermos of coffee for you. He glanced at her coffee cup, then back up into those blue eyes. Milo gave her a small, slow smile, and then turned back to Midge. What do I owe you, Midge? Milo paid his bill and nodded at Gwen as he shoved the thick book he'd been reading under his arm. He walked out of the diner. Gwen tried her best not to turn around and watch him as he left. She was sure he probably had an amazing ass, but didn't want him to catch her staring at it. She felt herself getting flushed. It had been a long time since she'd had this kind of a reaction to a man. Apparently, Midge had noticed too. I have known Milo for 5 years now, and I've never seen him react to a woman that way. It looks like he might have taken your breath away too. Just a little. Is he always so intense? Honey, there's nothing about that man that's not intense. He's got a passion about the things he loves that will floor you. But it's interesting to see that some things can still throw him off balance a little. Midge raised her eyebrows in Gwen's direction. Are you going to meet him tonight? I guess it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a light viewing partner, and it sounds like he's a reasonably trustworthy guy. So, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Well, make sure you stop by for lunch tomorrow and let me know how it went. I can hardly wait to hear. Midge was definitely enjoying this. I will on one condition. Could you direct me to Off the Trail Hotel? I know I'm still early, but it'll be nice to at least know where I'm going. Oh, Sarah and Riku will have a room ready for you, don't you worry about waiting. Go down Main Street until you can't go any farther, make a right and go one street down. You'll see OTT on the right of that street. Thanks, Midge. I appreciate it. Gwen smiled as she dug into her omelette. This was shaping up to be a very interesting weekend.